Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Blasting the shot. What a goal!
Again on the latest Wolves Fancast match preview show. What was that, Luke?
I was just going to say, you're on mute, mate.
Am I? Am I still on mute, Luke?
Nah, not there.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. As I said, on the Wolves Fancast match preview, part of the 90min.com network. I hope you're all doing well. It's Friday, ready to kickstart the weekend. Got a massive game coming up on Saturday, 3 p.m. against Liverpool. Merseyside Red for all the old Pro Evolution players. I've got with me, obviously, Lukey T. I've got Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap, and I've got Liam Tolley. You might recognise Liam Tolley from serving points in the Womben Cricket Club, but where else can they find you, Liam?
Find me all over the West Midlands on stages, all across Birmingham and Wolves. I'm in a little band called Rosa Caelum. So yeah, just thanks for having me on.
Got a gig coming up in Stourbridge on March the 3rd at K Fitzgerald. Honestly, if you're like me and you just want an indie revival back in Wolverhampton and the surrounding areas, you've got to go and follow this band. This band is the most exciting band from our area since the Lions for me. So if you've not seen them, go find them, go check them out. Rosa Caelum, just class band. I'm going to come to you first, Neil. How are things with you?
Absolutely splendid. Looking forward to the weekend. There's a lot to be said for Molineux. Although I believe you've been quiet this season. Is this something we're going to talk about?
It's usually quiet in that away end. Just in general, Neil, to be honest, not many away teams build up a bit of an atmosphere in that.
Well, it's hard. It's a tough end on that score. But what I meant was, I've been told that Molineux's not being it because I love Molineux. I'm not going this weekend, unfortunately. I've got to go and do something else. But I love Molineux. And when they were all going for the away game, I was like, "Oh, you'll have a good night there. You get a really good atmosphere at Wolves." And they all came back and said it's been a bit quiet. And I read a few things where you were saying it's been a bit quiet this season. Everyone's not, because it's not going so well on the pitch. Maybe it's not been quite as rambunctious as it was in the December of the December of 2018, which is one of the best atmospheres I've ever been to as an away ground.
I think.
Go on, Luke. I mean, the points in the league table say a lot, but you crack on, Luke.
I was going to say, I think if our sound system was as good as Liverpool's at Anfield, then the atmosphere might improve a little bit.
Really? I'm not coming here looking for needle. I'm genuinely intrigued. He's trying to do
Luke's had his needle set ready all week, Neil. He's a naughty lad.
Yeah, no, I remember the 2018 game, December 2018, and then the cup game that immediately follows. I remember coming back from people saying, "I tell you what, they know how to have a good time in Wolverhampton. It's second to none." So when our boys were going up for the league for the FA Cup, there was a lot of me going, "It'll go off at Molineux for the FA Cup replay," and then they said it's been quiet. And then I was told there was a couple of conversations of people saying it's just been a bit quiet all season. In Wolves circles, just saying it's been quiet all season. Has it been quieter than it normally is this season? Seriously,
we're all fed up.
Neil,
So basically, people are fed up. It's been a tough year. It's been a slog. It was a slog last season. It's one of them. That's what people are saying.
Pretty much. I mean, obviously with my gold tinted glasses on, I always thought we had a really good home atmosphere. Those first couple of seasons with the Prem.
Couldn't agree more.
You know what? Fair play, our fans. We are fantastic, but last 18 months or so, it's been terrible.
What I always thought going to Wolves when we used to go into Wolves last few seasons. The other thing also is that Wolves supporters sing about Wolves, which is when Liverpool rock up into town. When we rock up into Leeds United, they're desperate to sing about Liverpool. Leicester desperate to sing about Liverpool. Wolves always made a big noise about Wolves, always giving it the big one. As I say, I mentioned that game in 2018, the game in 2019 when 2019-20 season when we're lucky to win 2-1. Don't deserve to win 2-1 that day, but we just snatched the winner late on. Jota misses at the other end in the last seconds. Really fortunate Liverpool victory, but part of the league winning season. But the atmosphere in that second half was unreal. It was unbelievable from the Wolves supporters. And again, none of it's ever about Liverpool. It's always about Wolves. Whereas if you go to Leicester, all they do from minute one is sing about us, and it drives you mad. Whereas you go to Wolverhampton and they sing about Wolverhampton, and that's the absolute business, and that's great. So yeah, I was just intrigued when people said it was a bit quiet, but you just think everyone's a bit fed up, and it's just been a bit of a slog of a season and all that sort of stuff. But if Lopetegui gets them playing, then it'll all come back.
I think it's been tough for a while, hasn't it, Luke? I mean, you look at last season. We only scored 38 goals last season, Neil. 38 goals, and we obviously the main sort of standard at Wolverhampton, what we class as the South Bank. I'm not even sure how many goals even occurred at that end of the stadium. It was like 18 months, probably, maybe 12 months or 15 months. It's been a bit of a chore to watch Wolves. The frustration of the Nuno hangover, if you will, players becoming stale, the style of football becoming stale. There were so many games under Nuno, which then led into the large era that we didn't start playing until after the 60th minute, and things have come out since about after Bruno Lage got sacked about the players not being fit, only training like 3 days a week, so it's not rigged enough for them. And when you're starting game to the 60th, hasn't it, Luke?
Dan, you've really broke up then, to be fair, mate. I didn't quite catch that. But I think what he was trying to say is we've been shit. And, it hasn't.
I heard him say not playing after the 60th minute. Is that a thing? Has that been a thing, Liam or Luke? Has that been a thing this season?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the amount of first half goals scored over the last 18 months, pathetic. If you look at the amount of goals scored towards the South Bank, pathetic, which is predominantly in the second half, pathetic. We just haven't been scoring the goals. 38 goals last season. I don't even look at how many goals we've scored this season, but I would say about 12. It's hard, and especially it doesn't help that them putting the price of the beer up as well, so people ain't drinking as much, and little things like that. It all makes a difference, though. It really does.
No, it does. It does. One of the things I remember, genuinely, without being funny about it, that pouring down night in 2018, you got promoted. They had a DJ on the pitch, and there's a lot of people who sort of will go like that, and some of them are being the Liverpool end because everyone likes to be cooler than thou. He played absolute bangers. They put fireworks on. I was like, this is the best night of my life. Can we go out to Wolverhampton afterwards? It was absolutely incredible. And the atmosphere rattling around the ground was great. And it just felt like, get on this. This is like our thing, and we're making it our thing. And then, so if a lot of that love's been lost, or not love lost, but, the enthusiasm's been diminished, it just seems a bit of a shame to me.
It all adds up, though. I feel like, me personally, I feel like football's completely changed, and clubs need to look at what they're offering on a match day experience. And I know the purists won't want to hear that, because no, let's just turn up and shout abuse at the opposition for 90 minutes and then fuck off to the club. But you've got to cater for what football is now, and it's a product, unfortunately. Yeah. And I saw some videos from the Newcastle game the other day. Get some 90s house bangers on, and the crowd will be pumping. I tried to say this in the WhatsApp group the other week, but the problem with Wolves fans is, if it's not the Wonder Review or something from the 1970s, then we're not going to get on board with it.
Well, I mean, you just did that night. It was house bangers that night, going back into December 2018. It was genuinely, it was great. And as I say, everyone was up for it. It was a great game that night. We won 2-0, but it was an absolute battle. It was pouring down. I remember it just pouring with rain. But everyone was having the most phenomenal time. Probably your last home game before Christmas. Everyone was bang up for it. That's my thing. It's funny with the away end at Molineux, because it's the long, thin bit, and it is hard to get a proper atmosphere going at times. But I just remember thinking, this is great, this. And also, it felt then like everyone was having a great time. Everyone was having a ball. Everyone was banging into it. Nuno's first season in the Premier League. Can Lopetegui get that back?
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
I think going back to what you said about Nuno's first season there, Neil, the momentum that we had as a club at that time, storming the Championship, starting well in the Premier League. You look at Newcastle there, and they've got that momentum that even though they haven't got 11 world beaters playing for them, everyone is pulling in the same direction. Whereas sort of the last 15 months, we've been so sort of just fractured as a club. The fans have become a bit restless towards the ownership. Obviously, the managership tenures haven't been great, and that's why it's frustrating, because we have got the foundations to be a club that should be challenging for at least sort of Europa Conference League most seasons. But if you look at the sort of starting 11 that we've got now and the players that we've brought in this month, we should be a lot higher than the league position suggests. Do you agree with that, Liam?
It's just building that confidence, really, isn't it? Because after what everybody else says, it's that affects it the most. And if we want to get scoring and we want to get winning games again and get away from, even further from the relegation zone, then you've got to just build that confidence. And with the new manager, getting everybody fit, all that type of stuff, it will help leaps and bounds. And we know we can do it. We've seen it before. So it's just simple stuff like that, really, to get it going, in my opinion.
Do you think COVID was bad for? I mean, obviously, COVID was bad. Jesus, what a stupid thing to say. Do you think COVID was bad for Wolves? Because it seems to me, I remember watching this in the 1920 season and feeling as though, again, it felt like the drums were still pounding, everything was moving forward, and then the grounds got closed. I don't know how many you win post-COVID, the break, and then we all come back in the summer and it's behind closed doors. And then you'd have the season where you just sort of drop to 12th, 13th, 14th over the course of that season. Do you think it was genuinely, do you think, like, when someone writes the long history of Wolves in 20 years' time, they'll say one of the things that checked Wolves' momentum was the impact of the pandemic?
It was massive, Neil. You look at that Europa League that we had up until COVID happened. As I said, the momentum that we had, and we had sort of away trips to Torino, Braga. We smashed Espanyol over 2 legs, and then we would have had Olympiacos. That was the first sort of round that was played behind closed doors, which we didn't get to.
Of course,
travel over to Greece, which would have been like a massive experience. I still think, like I said, the momentum that we had as a club and the fan base's belief at the time, I believe we would have beat Sevilla in the quarterfinal. I don't know. You look at the performance and how Sevilla dismantled us on the night, but I still think with the backing out, we would have took over to Spain, or I think we played in Frankfurt.
Well, you beat Espanyol. You beat Espanyol 5-0 or 4-0 or something. You absolutely murdered
4-0 the first leg,
in your gaff the round before, and yet Olympiacos gets broken up in that really weird way. That happens to some of the games. And was the Sevilla game just a one-leg thing? If I remember right, that's what happened with the Premier with the Champions League as well. They all become one legs. Yeah,
that's right. I think, obviously, Raul Jimenez missed a massive penalty, didn't he, Luke?
He did, and that ultimately killed us on the night. But going back to COVID, it's difficult because the sort of results do point to, it affected us not having any fans. But our last game pre-COVID, we was only discussing it yesterday. Wolves 0, Brighton 0. Terrible performance on the pitch, and the atmosphere was terrible.
It was the worst way to break up for COVID, that game. Honestly, that game was like the football equivalent of COVID.
If you could sum up COVID in a football game, Wolves 0, Brighton 0, February 2020.
You got to remember as well, Neil, this was like, I think it was under Chris Hughton was the manager then at Brighton, wasn't he?
Ooh, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I think you could be right.
I think it definitely wasn't Potter, and it was a It definitely wasn't a Brighton team that were coming to play football like the way that they did against you last week, which we'll talk on a bit further. Neil, for sort of the Wolves fans who aren't heavily invested in Liverpool, how have you rated your January transfer window on a scale of 0 to 10, and in words?
5, but because of the order in which they do it, it feels like 0. Everyone wants them to try to sort out a midfielder. They haven't. They've bought a forward, and they bought him on December the 27th, which is getting your business done early, which is great in one sense. But in another sense, what it means is that when you get to the end of the window and everyone's desperate for a sign and there isn't one, and they're probably a bit like, well, we made one. And everyone's like, well, no one cares about that one now. That was ages ago. So they could have really done with a midfielder, ultimately. It's a funny one, really. Last summer, there was a lot of conversations about whether or not they needed a midfielder, and I thought that they needed an attacking midfielder. And the reason why is because he's wanted to change the shape for a while. So he's wanted to go to 4-2-1-3 or 4-2-2-2, I think, for a while. He's actually been doing it surreptitiously because the nature of the way footballers get written down. He picks a team and everyone just thinks Liverpool play 4-3-3, but I actually think for a while now Liverpool haven't been playing 4-3-3. So I was a bit like, if you're going to go into the new season and you're only attacking midfielders, Harvey Elliott, who's 19, you probably need another attacking midfielder. But they didn't buy one. And I understood sort of why. I had a bit of sympathy for it. Not least we achieved everything we achieved last season. But this season, it's become crystal clear that the level of Fabinho and Henderson has absolutely gone off a cliff. Last season, Henderson plays 57 games. He makes appearances in 57 games, which is more games than Arsenal play over the course of the season. You know, that's how many games Henderson plays. Fabinho plays 48 games, which might also be more games than Henderson plays over the course of the season. And Liverpool, I think, came into the season thinking, if we get 2 from 3 on the pitch out of Henderson, Fabinho and Thiago, and then we put one other on, depending on what we want to do tactically, then we'll be in good nick over the course of this campaign. And ultimately, Fabinho and Henderson have got no legs. And I don't know quite if that ever changes again. I certainly don't know when it changes again. So when you get to this January, they needed a midfielder because ultimately the two lads who were both 6 foot tall, 6'2", who look after games from a Liverpool point of view, put themselves about the pitch, both of them have shown an inability to do that. Henderson, for instance, on December the 30th, plays against Leicester, and he has the worst hour of football he's probably ever had playing for Liverpool. He's that bad. Doesn't get subbed. Keita comes on and makes a bit of a difference, and Henderson sort of drags his level back up a little bit from absolute shite to just about passable. Fabinho last week against Brighton in the FA Cup comes off the bench and has probably amongst the worst 10 minutes as I've ever seen a Liverpool substitute have. I mean, he should be sent off. And he basically spreads doubt through the team. I mean, he came on with the worst juju I've ever seen a footballer have. And he's then in everyone else's head. He's going up and talking to all of his teammates, pulling his daft face of I probably should be sent off there, whilst the whole thing's being put to VAR. And I was almost like, I'd rather the referee had just walked up and gone, straight red, get off the pitch. And then we just recalibrate ourselves back into the fact that this fella's got himself sent off here. But you know what we do is we just kick everything for the last 10 minutes of the game, and we get the draw. That doesn't happen, and we concede the late winner, which is a shame. But he's a lovely player, Mitoma. I thought he was the game's outstanding attacking performer. So you've got to swallow that sometimes if he shows that much poise and class in the last minute. But Fabinho's problems have been, I think, even go back to last April a teeny little bit. But I think they thought he gets an injury last April. I actually don't think he should have started the Champions League final. In the end, I think he should have gone with Henderson, Keita, and Thiago. He goes with Fabinho instead. But there was other stuff going on that day in Paris, so we'll worry about all that later. Ultimately, the issue now is that Liverpool have only got one senior midfielder, and that's Thiago. He's not picking Henderson. He's not picking Fabinho. So it would have been nice if they'd have gone into the market and got one more. So you end up sort of rating it 5 out of 10. Gakpo could be an attacking midfielder, could work as a forward option. We've not seen the best of him yet, but then he's got no teammates to play with apart from Salah. There's been no Firmino. Nunez hasn't started a game. There's been no sign, obviously, of Jota, no sign of Diaz, and Firmino's been injured for the period. So we've got 6 forwards, but we've only had 2 of them available effectively so far. So I'm you've got to reserve judgment on Gakpo, and I also think you might use him a little bit in a bit of a funny sort of attacking midfield role over a period of time. But so the whole thing's, it's 5 out of 10 because they did half the job. They got themselves the new attacker in / attacking midfielder, but they really could have done with having a plan for how they're going to replace or cover Fabinho and Henderson whilst they're having this crisis of fitness or confidence or both or whatever it is for however long it takes.
So what do you think the plan is at Liverpool? Because I'm going to get his name wrong now. Is it Bjatic or something like that?
Yeah, it's really hard to say because it doesn't work like it should. Vasevic.
He looks okay. I'm not saying he's Liverpool's level, and you want to get 35 games out of him through the league this season, but he looks okay. So what is the plan? Because obviously, everybody knows about Bellingham and how that would have been the dream transfer. But how does that work for Liverpool now? Because if I'm looking from the outside in, like you've mentioned, Henderson, Fabinho, not the level because of confidence, fitness, whatever. You look at Keita, he's never really done it for me. So like you said, you're left with Thiago. Now, is that going to be a massive problem for Liverpool this season? And you're going to see teams come and dominate you in the middle of the park, whereas 2 and 3 years ago, no one would have dreamed of that happening.
So I think his direction of travel is just to play 2 centre mids and accept that that's the case. But I also think that's his direction of travel, full stop, but with better centre mids. Mm-hmm. So I think ultimately, when he gets everyone, but at the minute, I think he's just playing for time. The manager, he's playing for fitness. I've said before, there's been 4 missing of his attacking options. But I think he's going to be playing forward every single game. I think Liverpool are going to basically, I think his direction of travel's been to end up playing something that you could really quite basically at times write down as 4-2-4. I think that's the way he sees football going. And so I don't think, as I say, I don't think this is just this season, and I don't think it's part of this crisis period that we're in. I think that's what he wants to do. Now, whether or not I like it, I'll be honest, I like 3 midfield cyborgs that would kill you upon contact. That's the football I like. But who am I? He's the Liverpool manager, and that's his direction of travel. And he's a great manager. And at some point, a football team plays a way you don't like, or that wouldn't be your preferred way of all the football that you would prefer to watch. And you've got to sort of cop for that a little bit if you're a football supporter sometimes. And also accept simultaneously it could win. Manchester City, for instance, have segued themselves from playing literally no centre forward for 2 years, effectively, to now playing the purest centre forward we've all ever seen in our lives. And there'll be some City supporters thinking, I preferred it, to be honest with you, when we had no one up there. Yeah. But the truth is, football evolves, managers evolve, they want to do different things, and you've got to cop for it. I think that's sort of where Klopp's been for a bit longer than it's not just the idea of the last summer. I think he was having Liverpool play in a slightly different way for a period of time. There was less Fabinho, Henderson, Wijnaldum. Obviously, Wijnaldum moves on, but there was less of that sort of thing for a period of time. And there was more of a sort of an attacking midfielder type. At times, it was also Henderson doing it and then doing his sort of normal job as well on top. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're about. And I think he's committed to that. Now, at the minute, I think if you were to speak to him, he'd love to get a footballer out of Henderson and Fabinho, even if it was one that could only play, almost the idea of one plays 60, the other plays 30. Following week, that one plays, the one that played 30 plays 60, that one plays 30. I think that would be absolutely perfect for him. Next to Thiago, and occasionally rest Thiago. I think he knows Batshevic isn't his way home from now until the end of the campaign. The lad looks great, don't get me wrong. For an 18, 19-year-old, he looks like an unbelievable level. But I think, you can't think he win the Champions League with him in there. And Liverpool have still got a chance of doing that. You're in a cup competition, you're in it until the bitter end, and Liverpool will back themselves, and the crowd will back them as well. In terms of doing the unlikely, I think we can all come with that. I think he'll limit his midfielders. So if everyone was fit, I think he'd be playing 4-2-4. I think he'd be picking 4 from Jota, Diaz, Firmino, Salah, Nunez, and Gakpo. And then off the back of that, you then only have 2 in the middle of the park who sit quite deep, who look after the ball for you and just get it forward to the good lads. And it's not the purest way you'll ever play football. It's not the neatest way you'll ever play football, but it could win you games because you're picking 4 match winners every single time you pick a team. That's what I think where I think he wants to end up. He's not there at the minute. And that's why I think he's playing for time. So Jota's back in a form of training, and there's talk he's back into normal, regular team training next week, which would be great news for us. Diaz still looking at March, but he's running. Firmino's back close to team training, so he might be back in the shake-up. And Nunez comes off the bench against Brighton, and I'd expect him to start against Wolves at the weekend. He might not be a full 90 just yet, but he's hopefully there or thereabouts, and then there's Gakpo and Salah. So that's what I think we're looking at, and that's where I think we are.
Frustratingly, Neil, you've been linked to another of our Portuguese prodigies. In Mateus Nunes this month. How do you feel he would fit in your side? Because you've mentioned about wanting an attacking midfielder there. Well, he's more of a number 8 than a number 10, isn't he?
Yeah, I think the Nunes thing is mad. Like, I can't believe... I find it really weird that he didn't sign for Liverpool last summer. Every link was to Liverpool for ages, and then all of a sudden he turns up at Wolves. And I think I'd love to understand what's gone on. And even the price, it wasn't like the price changed. It doesn't feel like Wolves gazumped Liverpool or anything like that. It looked like he was just slated to come to Liverpool, and then suddenly was in 3 days, it all flipped and he was going to Wolves. So I don't entirely understand it. Liverpool tend to stay interested in players once they've Chamberlain we were linked with for a long period of time. There's a number of players like Zielinski at Napoli now we were linked with for years. I think Liverpool do tend to stay interested in players. I think Liverpool, listen, next summer, and my position was always about next summer. Next summer, Liverpool need 3 midfielders. They don't just need an attacking midfielder. They now need 3. I think they need 3 anyway. But now the level of the 3 they need goes up, I think, a notch or 2. So if Liverpool were to move for Nunes, it sort of wouldn't surprise me. What I just find odd, not the idea that someone like Núñez shouldn't play for Wolves, because I think, Wolves are a perfectly good club to play for any player. It was just how much he was linked with Liverpool, and then suddenly he turns up at Molineux is the bit that I've just sort of never quite understood.
There's a reason behind that. It's because we're fucking massive, mate.
Well, I also think he is a massive, so you don't need to worry on that score. I just think it was all just a little weird.
You're being too polite, Neil, because we all know the answer, and it's a Portuguese man called Jorge Mendes who plays chess.
But it might be, but I don't even entirely understand the game of chess, because right now he play every week for us. Like this season, from about game 3, he's played every week. So I don't understand the game of chess, unless the game of chess is you literally.
I still think that Klopp's loyalty to his midfield has been questioned a lot in the last couple of months, hasn't it, Neil? And maybe if they could wring another season out of the guys that you had. Obviously, you had so many unfortunate injuries with Joao and Diaz this season. I think
he wanted to wring another season out of them. I think that's sort of accurate. But simultaneously, he's a football manager. He's now playing Bajcetic, who's 18. Keita, who's out of contract at the end of the season and doesn't look like he's staying. Liverpool have ceased contract talks. And Thiago. So if he'd have bought the new lad, he'd have got games. And then when he's got games, he'd have kept his place because, without sort of being too dramatic about it, the Fabinho and Henderson have had so few good games this campaign. So few good games, the two of them. There's been games where Henderson's good at dragging himself from a lot of our supporters don't like this, but he's good at dragging himself from a slightly questionable performance to an all right one over 90. There's a lot of first halves where I'm like, for fuck's sake, Jordan, come on. Yeah. And then by about the final whistle, you're like, all right, Jordan, that's just about all right in the end. Fabinho's been just a bit of a wreck, with one or two exceptions. He was good against Man City. The really weird thing about this Liverpool team is it's beat Man City twice this season, and deserve to win both games. And played really, really well against them, roused themselves for that. They won 5 of the 6 Champions League group games in there as well. But you left another good example is that they get beat at Arsenal 3-2, but first half they're the better side. They just shoot themselves in the foot 3 times over the course of the game and concede 3 stupid goals. First half it finishes 2-1 to Arsenal. It deserves to be 2-1 to Liverpool at half-time, but Liverpool do something mental from a free kick in injury time, throw everyone forward for reasons I've never understood and concede a goal on the counter, and also conceded a goal in the first 40 seconds. But Thiago and Henderson play centre-mid in a 4-4-2, and they both play pretty well. All of that said, though, that's me sticking up for Henderson. If Núñez was playing for us, he'd have 18, 19 appearances by now. Mm-hmm. No shadow of a doubt. When that Bajcetic is playing because he doesn't trust his captain, or his mainstay midfielder who turns up, wins the Champions League, gets 97 points, and then the following season wins the league with Liverpool. But he's not picking that fella either. So there's reasons for that. And that's that the manager's decided to say, well, I can't pick these at the minute. I can't trust them.
I think it's something that Klopp's got to sort out, though. Otherwise...
Oh, this summer.
Are you 10th at the moment?
9th or 10th.
Like, this is quite easily a season where if these issues aren't identified and Fabinho and Henderson's form continues, because it sounds like Liverpool are really inconsistent at the moment, this could be a season where it's absolutely tragic and you end up finishing 8th or 9th.
Yeah, very much so. And that would be potentially, yes and no. So the one thing I would say is that you can make a really strong argument, and this is horrible, it shouldn't be the case within football, but you can make a really strong argument Liverpool are better off finishing 9th and 5th. Because I don't think we'd want the Europa League stuff. Yeah. You'd be better off almost just having a season where you get to completely cleanse yourself, reduce the squad back down, let more than we even might let go. Say we don't need a 25-man squad. We'll be all right with a 21-man squad as long as they can keep fit and sort themselves out, and then go from there. So the funny thing is, Liverpool, I think, have got a decision to make at some point soon about whether or not they feel as though they can genuinely finish top 4. Because the consolation prize might actually make next season harder.
Speaking of, obviously, you've been talking about your midfield woes for the last few minutes, Neil. Wolves, on the other hand, aren't experiencing midfield woes at the moment because we've arguably signed the greatest Brazilian defensive midfielder since Fernandinho this week. obviously Joao Gomes finally completed his move to Wolves, and we're doing a shirt competition over on our Twitter page. If Joao Gomes features in tomorrow's game against Liverpool, we'll give away to one lucky winner a Wolves or Brazil shirt with his name and number on the back. All you got to do is retweet the post and follow Wolves Fancast. It's our pinned tweet currently. Liam, what were your thoughts on the unveiling of Joao Gomes, the whole saga? Are you happy he's finally here?
Yeah, it's just going to give us more depth and just that ability to push teams. Like for example, the last game versus Liverpool, once we push them, we were just right up there, and it just needs that extra little bit in the middle and in the midfield to just give us more options of performance up top, because that's where we're lacking. We're lacking that final little bit to get those extra goals, and I think it would be absolutely brilliant to get him going. I'd love to see how he'll fit in, definitely.
It's going to be a massive improvement, like you said, in regards to depth. I just want to pull up his picture a second, because I've just noticed Joao Gomes. Luke, you look a bit like Joao Gomes if we put Joao Gomes in a fat booth.
Do you know what, right? Oh, that. Do you know what, right? It's funny that you said that, because I was watching the video the other day, and obviously, I'm getting old now. I'm a middle-aged man, and I've just got to admit it. And I thought, I'm at an age now where Wolves are getting players where I could pass as their dad. Like, if somebody said to me, like, "Oh, you look like Joao Gomez's dad," like, I couldn't even say nothing, because I actually do look like I could be Joao Gomez's dad.
It's ridiculous now. I started feeling old when the likes of like Sean Wright-Phillips and Joe Cole retired and Robbie Keane retired. That's when I started to feel proper old. We've had a bit of a transfer saga. I'm not sure how invested you were in the story about #free Joao Gomez, Neil, but has there been a player that Liverpool have signed that you've been so excited that they were going to sign him, but in the background you didn't really know a massive amount about him?
Naby Keita. I'm going to start the weekend. So loads of YouTube stuff. Look, the absolute business. To be fair, I think he's had hard lines at Liverpool, and he's sort of done all right. He's been around while Liverpool have won league and European Cup, for God's sake. So he's done well enough. But ultimately, Keita was one where we were all unbelievably excited about him, but we weren't. I don't think even the club, in a really weird way, in the end, were that sure about what the actual footballer they were getting was, and maybe the team had changed a little bit by the time he arrived. But Keita, who I think no, I don't think he will start the weekend. I think he's the one who's going to miss out. But Keita is a really good example of it.
It's going to be a big weekend. It's a massive game for both sides because we need the points. But I think this is pretty much Lopetegui's first game. The transfer window's closed. This is his side now for the rest of the season, and hopefully the players can put a stamp down on this is how Lopetegui wants us to play. It's game week 22 of the Premier League. The weekend begins tonight at 8 o'clock. The West London money derby, Chelsea versus Fulham, Everton versus Arsenal tomorrow. Neil, Everton versus Arsenal tomorrow. Mikel Arteta's been given the Manager of the Month award for January. Surely Arsenal have got enough to beat that Everton side tomorrow.
The best ads. We've all got a job to do, and by the way, let me sort of pay fulsome respect to Wolverhampton Wanderers with reference to 95th minute winners at Goodison Park. The best type of winner at Goodison Park. We were walking into the ground at Aston Villa, and an excitement, a hubbub came up with loads of lads just going 8-0. He's just scored. It's the feel good story of the season. To be honest with you, it's the thing that we can all get behind. So with a bit of luck, Arsenal do the decent thing. We've all got responsibilities. You know what I mean? We've got them next. We play you, and then we've got Everton on Monday night, and it's huge. The game, the 12:30. If I had one guaranteed result this weekend, where I could guarantee an outcome, it wouldn't be the 3 p.m. at Molineux. I'll be crystal clear about that one. So yeah, we've all got a dream to live. We'll get there one step at a time, and hopefully we can do it together. You know what I mean?
Neil, you mentioned earlier how much you love the Molineux atmosphere. I'm not sure how the fixture schedule is going to happen, but we've got Everton, last home game of the season in May.
I might come.
There may be a free ticket if Liverpool are playing the day after.
I might come. I mean, even if we're playing that day, I might come. Let's just.
To be fair, like I said, the league position that you're in at the moment, your season may be over by that point, so you may as well come to Molineux and hopefully see us.
Our season will not be over until that matter is resolved. Let's be crystal clear. That our season will not be over until that matter is resolved. So yeah, it's a big game on Saturday, and hopefully Arsenal do the decent thing.
are Liverpool fans wanting Everton to go down? Because I've never got the derby. Because sometimes you sort of hugging each other inside the ground.
We're never hugging each other inside the ground
that.
anymore, Luke. Let's be crystal clear. Those days are long gone. Different Liverpool supporters feel different things. Some people will miss the derby massively. It's in part, obviously, informed by the nature of the job I do. My view towards Everton Football Club has shifted since being the fellow who hosts the Anfield Wrap for the last however many years, and results and things that have come from that. As it stands, I am. Whoever Everton are playing, we walked out of Brighton early, the league game, because we were appalled and we were getting beat 3-0, and all everyone cared about coming out was the fact that Southampton had just gone 2-1 at Goodison. It's the thing that's on everyone's minds around here. So they've got the new manager. He's a good manager, by the way. Could do a really good job for them, and if he does, all the best. You know what I mean? Full handshakes all around and all of that. But there is an opportunity here for Everton to go down. And Saturday 12:30 against Arsenal. I would hate a new manager bounce. I want no new manager bounce. They've got him. They've got Arsenal. Then they've got us at Anfield. Then they've got Leeds and Villa back to back at home. And so the hope is that we get a new manager splat. That's what I'm looking for.
I think the whole country's on its knees for Everton to get relegated.
It's on its knees in loads of senses, but I think that is also one of the senses. It's on its knees.
Yeah,
it's on its knees. It's on its knees for that too. But who am I to say? And as I say, if they pull it out the bag, fair play to them. And we all knock around. We all go to the same pubs. We're all knocking around the same city and so on and so forth. But there's a pressure on Arsenal on Saturday, and if they think their game matters vis-a-vis finishing ahead of Manchester City, they couldn't be more wrong. The pressure that's on Arsenal is only coming in one sense, and it's that they do the decent thing and do not let up.
Obviously, you mentioned Wolves versus Liverpool at 3:00. Some of the fixtures to mention on Saturday: Aston Villa against Leicester, Brentford versus Southampton, Brighton at home to Bournemouth, Man United at home to Crystal Palace, and Newcastle West Ham is the 5:30 on Saturday. Looking at those fixtures on the Saturday, Liam, who's your banker for a win?
Well, at the minute, you've got to say Man United, haven't you, versus Crystal Palace? I mean, they're looking good. Rashford's back in form, so I'd say they're your bankers, other than Wolves beating Liverpool. But it's one of them.
I love what you're drinking, Tolly. Who's your banker on Saturday, Luke?
God, there's some tasty fixtures this weekend. It's not a bad game week, but my banker, I'll go for Brighton. I think they're playing absolutely fantastic at the minute, and Bournemouth, they look out of sorts, but I suppose it's one of those local derby, quote unquote. But yeah, I think Brighton would be my banker.
Without going into too much depth about the defeat last weekend, Neil, how impressed were you with Brighton? I've said this a few times this season. Man City beat us, was it 3 or 4-0 at Molineux? But Brighton are the best team I've seen in the flesh this season.
They were great. We played them twice back to back, the Amex, and they were better in the league game. There was 3 or 4 excellent individual performances against us in the FA Cup. Again, Matoma, I thought was the absolute business, and he was the business against us in the league game. I couldn't be more impressed with them. Couldn't speak more highly of them. And it's a great ground. It's a great place to go. I love how they open the concourses afterwards. I love the sort of general vibe around it. I think it's a really warm, welcoming ground. They're getting everything right on and off the pitch at the minute, as far as I'm concerned. I'm all in on Brighton. I'd go there every week if they let us. I think it's great. I think it's a great place as well. I really love a night out there. So, no, I've been so impressed by them. I really hope they win the FA Cup, genuinely, after they beat us last weekend. Sometimes you do this and it's a bit like, well, you want to get beat by the winners and all that sort of stuff. I just want them to win the FA Cup. I think they play great stuff, and I want the idea. They've held the line on Caicedo. They've not accepted the mega money. They've not accepted the daftness. I'd love them to end up being rewarded, including Caicedo himself. I hasten to add, I'd like them to end up being rewarded for that. And I really think that they're a club, top to bottom, that deserve to play European football next season. So I'm all in. I think they're great, and with a bit of luck, they'll find their way through.
Luke, as I mentioned, brought his needle kit with him earlier, Neil. So we're not going to talk about the FA Cup match between us and yourselves at Anfield, but looking at your last 6 games, obviously losing to Brighton 2-1.
Luke, I wish they'd give that goal more than you, mate. So don't worry. I wish they'd give that goal more than you. Don't you worry in the slightest.
Oh, it's just I can't even talk about it no more.
I was in line with. As soon as it went in, and then there was something around. I went, it's a goal. That it's not offside. I was there. I was in the ground going, it's a goal. It's going to get given this. And it was one of them, and everyone's around me going, it's not going to get. The linesman put his flag up. The flag was up, and I was going, but it's a goal. They're going to review this, and it's a goal. I can just see it's a goal. That's a goal. It's going to get given. I was absolutely amazed it didn't get given. Genuinely amazed it didn't get given. And as I say, then we wouldn't have had to get beat by Brighton again, and we wouldn't have had to do the replay and end up playing Wolves 4 times in one season. So,
that was the most frustrating thing, Neil, was the fact that none of us really wanted to play Brighton. Yeah. We would have just.
After this replay for the honour of getting splattered at the Amex. yeah.
It was frustrating. Those Wolves fans who were robbed of an iconic win at Anfield in that first FA Cup game. It's frustrating. You look at some of the VAR stats that have come out as well today, Neil, with Liverpool being the most fortunate team that resulted from VAR this season. Is it plus 6 points due to VAR?
Are we?
Yeah.
Christ, well, there's been other seasons where it's not felt like that. There was one at Brighton in the COVID season where Robertson kicked the underside of Welbeck's boot, and the referee went, "That's a penalty." When penalties were even madder, that was one. Then this stuff balances out over the period of time, but no one ever feels like it does because, my God, we hate every bit of it.
Neil? But does it?
Yeah. I mean, we've lost leagues on video assistant referees' decisions. So
you're talking about that Rodri handball again, aren't you, Neil?
That's an example of one, isn't it? It's a good example of one. There's others as well. You've got to try and be sort of semi-philosophical about it, but everyone has hard luck stories. But as I say, I just thought that was a goal to Wolves. That was I was in the ground and I was watching it there, and I was going, "That's a goal." So sometimes you have hard lines, and they are hard lines. And as you say, it's a shame for the Wolves supporters because they travelled. Enjoyed themselves, as a good time. It's a good full end in the FA Cup. Probably would have won the game 3-2. There was still 10 minutes to go, but probably would have won the game 3-2. So I take the general point, but they do sort of balance out, I suppose, over the course of a season. I'd quite like to have a season where they don't balance out. We get them all, and then we win the league, but not to be.
So just the one win in the last 6 for Wolves, whereas Liverpool, I think, just
also one win
as well.
Also one win.
Yeah, the form. The same, ain't it? Is it?
It's not grabbing. Liverpool have taken 3 more points in the league.
Yeah, we're actually the form team.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the fact that we've played Liverpool twice and Man City, Lopetegui has done wonders to a degree, considering he hasn't really had the players up until the window closed the other day. What's your thoughts on Lopetegui so far, Liam?
Strong. I think he's still definitely got things to prove, but the potential's there. Without a doubt, we can all see it. We fought hard the last few games, just unlucky, really. But I definitely think we've got more positive things to come than we have negative, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a few bits came out from today's press conference. Julian Lopetegui said he was pleased with the transfer window, no injuries to mention. Joao Gomes will be good for the present and the future. It's a massive signing. I'm buzzing for the lad. I saw the behind the scenes video, and he just seems such a likeable character. He just seems like a duck fresh out of water. He's so young. He's got that sort of enthusiasm, which I think he's going to bring to the squad. Obviously, we've got a few Brazilians already and Portuguese-speaking lads, so we should settle in well. The main comment that was mentioned in the press conference today, Luke, that there's a possibility that Craig Dawson may start tomorrow. What's your feelings on that? Because it seems to be too much of a gamble for me. I think it would be the detrimental effect that could have on Collins or Kilman if either of those are dropped. I don't know whether they come back from that, and it also damages them both from a financial point of view.
Yeah, I think you've just got to. It's just one of them. We've just got to wait for Collins or Kilman to have a bad game, and whichever one has a bad game first will get dropped for Dawson. I think that's it.
If Lopetegui does bite the bullet, Luke, who are you dropping out the two?
I feel they're actually on par with each other. I don't think one sort of supersedes the other by that much that he commands a place more than the other. They're literally very, very similar, but Kilman.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Liam? Who would you drop out of Collins or Kilman if Dawson was to come in?
I'd go the opposite with Collins. I feel that you can back Kilman a little bit more, and with Dawson coming in, I think it makes sense in my head from watching them play. It just offers that bit more stability at the back, which we do need.
It is. I totally agree. I mentioned the other week that it's just it's a really astute signing for Wolves. Craig Dawson, not an extravagant centre back like Virgil van Dijk, Neil, but bear with me for a second. He did also score past Liverpool the other season, didn't he, Craig Dawson?
Yeah, he's a good player, and he's done well at West Ham. He's clearly switched on. He's got a brain, defends well, organised as well. If it was me, I suspect it may well be Collins, because I don't think he'd necessarily, especially given the prowess of Bueno or Aït-Nouri, I presume it will be Bueno. But Kilman's good at recycling the ball and moving it that way, whereas Dawson's weakness arguably is going to be with the ball at his feet. So I think it'll be, if he's going to drop either of them, I think it'll be Dawson in for Collins in this one, and then let Kilman stay with the left-hand side.
Luke, you gave me your preferred starting 11 before the show tonight. You've gone for a back four of Breno, Kilman, Collins and Semedo. Midfield three of Neves, Lamina and Mateus. Front three of Daniel Pedence, Mateus Cunha and Adama. It's an attacking lineup. As I said, we've got to go out this Liverpool side from the off, really, haven't we? We've got to try and stamp our mark on this game. Where do you see the Liverpool weaklings being based on Neil's lineup there? He's gone for a back four of Trent, Alexander-Arnold, Joao Matip, Joao Gomes and Andy Robertson. Midfield two of Bajovic, Thiago, Gakpo and Elliott just in front of those, with a front two of Salah and Darwin Núñez.
For me, I think I'd be looking to get Adama running at Robertson at every opportunity, because I just think that's when Adama's dangerous. You know, obviously he splits the fan base like probably no other player we've ever had. But I just think you give Adama the ball, get him running at his fullback. Robertson ain't going to be going to sleep tonight thinking, I hope Adama has a couple of runs at me tomorrow. You know, that's the last thing he's going to want. And then I think when you look in the middle of the park, I'd like to think our middle three can sort of, however, sort of rotationally, whether it be Neves and Núñez or Neves, Lamina and Núñez, can dominate Bajcetic, sorry about his name, and or Thiago. I think that's where we can win that. If we can create those overloads in the middle of the park, I think that's where we could win the game.
Based on his performance in the FA Cup replay, Neil, is there any fear whatsoever of Adama? Because I know teams used to double up on him, but sometimes it feels as a Wolves fan that it's so frustrating to watch that opposition teams don't really need to double up on him.
I've got tons of fear of him. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm always concerned. Listen, anyone who can carry the ball 60 yards and stick it in the top corner, you've got to worry about. Now, he doesn't stick it in the top corner very often, but I actually think the lad has hard lines at times. The first 20 minutes, I thought, in the cup game, he puts 2 or 3 really good balls in, but there's no one there to attack them. And I think a lot of the time, this is what does him in. You know, I think I'm always, when everyone says, you know, where's the assists or where's the end product with him, at times I'm a little bit like, if there's a minor issue the lad's got, and that he's had playing for this Wolves side, I think at times, it's that he ends up so substantially further ahead of play than anyone else. And then no one joins and no one's there. No one gambles either. I like him. I like him a lot. I don't know about his personality, but I like him a lot as a threat. I think he's dangerous. I don't think Robertson likes playing against him. Also, Robertson, his natural game is to push up, but he can't do that. Dealing with Adama Traore, just not an option. Not something that's viable for him at all. So I think Liverpool will end up playing but both fullbacks quite conservatively from the start. In this one, it might change as the game wears on. And then from there, looking to play a little bit of a broken team, as you can see. I think it may well be. The strange thing is, I think Salah and Darwin will play wider than Gakpo and Elliott. So you'll end up in a situation where they'll play in the gap between the fullbacks and the centre halves. And look to sort of attack into that space. And Gakpo and Elliott like to be quite narrow. And turn it into a midfield 4 when they need to, and then be able to join the attacking 2. That's what I think Liverpool may well do. The only question is whether or not he picks Keita and makes it a 4-3-3 rather than one of Salah, Gakpo, Elliott, and Darwin. But I just think he ultimately will want to. I think he'll want to give Elliott another game. I think he likes Elliott a great deal. Elliott is going to be at Liverpool next season. Keita isn't going to be at Liverpool next season. So I think he might have the attitude of he'll have Keita from the bench. He might have another player from the bench he can use and go with something like you can see there. And I think that I think it'll be more of a thing where one of them plays as an attacking midfielder, but Gakpo drops in, so it ends up being that they're sort of shielding the space around Neves. Liverpool won't want Neves on the ball. And whenever we play Wolves, our first thing is how do we stop the ball getting to Neves? Not even the idea of closing Neves down when he gets it. How do we make it really difficult for him to get it? And I think the plan might well be to smother him from behind, almost as it were. So stop Kilman and Collins feeding it into Neves by virtue of covering that option with Gakpo and Elliott.
I thought Neves was outstanding in the FA Cup replay. He dictated the play the majority of the game. It wasn't a great game for the neutral. I thought both teams defended well in the game. But yeah, Ruben Neves is going to be key for us tomorrow. He's the one who needs to be pulling the strings. Obviously, those diagonals to Adama, when we can get him one-on-one against Andy Robertson, will be key. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk's a massive miss for you, but his form wasn't great before the injury, was it, Neil?
No, he was just like a normal, really good centre-back and not like Virgil van Dijk. He was better last season than this when he first came back from the injury. So with a bit of luck, this little break will help him sort of rekindle a little bit. He's obviously brilliant. You know, he'll always be consistently brilliant, but I think he's found it difficult. And as Liverpool have been more exposed through the middle of the park, I think, therefore, your centre-backs get more exposed, your full-backs get more exposed. That's how it works. He's not had the luxury of playing in front of a slightly different back four yet. So in the fullness of time, Virgil will get back. He's not going to be back for this one.
Let's talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold for a moment. Obviously, Hugo Bueno is going to be coming up against him and Salah for the majority of the game tomorrow. Hugo's been outstanding for us the last few months, probably been one of the better players when we've been having poor spells. But Trent Alexander-Arnold hasn't been great for a while, but he's still a massive threat, isn't he, Neil?
Yeah, he plays a sublime pass in the game against Brighton, and he's a footballer who's capable of things that no other footballer in the league is capable of in his position, and only about two other footballers in the league are capable of. Full stop. There's De Bruyne, there's maybe Odegaard now. As he's coming to the boil, but for me, that's how unique Trent Alexander-Arnold is, how special a player he is. So, at times I think he's found it hard this season. I think he's been exposed. I think he finds it difficult without having Henderson in front of him. But the version of Henderson there's been this season hasn't been able to support him as much as he'd like. So I think he's been playing a little bit more withdrawn and doing a bit more sort of quarterback sort of bits and pieces. So he's not been overcommitting in some games this season in terms of getting ahead of Salah, for instance. That doesn't happen anywhere near as much as it used to. Instead, he tends to sort of pick his passes from deep. Núñez is brilliant for him potentially because the movement, the speed, the touch. So the idea of Núñez being able to find bits and pieces of space and Trent be able to try to sort of find him from 30, 40 yards deeper, I think is something Liverpool will be looking for in this one. And I'll be looking for in general. I think Liverpool are going to want to try to almost look to turn Wolves around in those areas quite quickly, see if they can nick it back and look to explode into the space. And that'll be, I think, Liverpool's plan. See if they can get Salah and Darwin working really nicely in the space between Bueno and Kilman on one side and Collins and Semedo on the other. And then someone like Gakpo or Elliott coming and arriving at the edge of the box. I think that will be the Liverpool sort of outlook through the game, and Trent will be really important in that, in terms of him being able to put the ball into areas where no one wants to defend them. They don't have to always be accurate passes, but the idea of turning centre-backs and full-backs round and giving them something that they don't want to have to deal with is what Trent Alexander-Arnold's brilliant at.
I thought he's
sorry.
Now, just talking about Trent, I think he gets a lot of unnecessary stick, and his assist against us in the FA Cup was absolutely superb. I thought the pass was just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Sort of now you've been speaking about Trent, it's got me thinking, and I would probably make a change to our team on the back of that, and his threat, and I'd swap Podence for Ait-Nouri. I just think Ait-Nouri just offers a bit more protection defensively against Trent and Salah, but also going forward, I think in the FA Cup, Ait-Nouri was killing Trent.
He's a good player. I think you've got two really good left backs, and I think it's interesting. Sometimes that happens to a team. I think Bueno was great, by the way, but I've been really impressed with Ait-Nouri whenever I've seen him. I know he didn't start this season very well, but I think he's a really, really good player. I think the two of them are genuinely, they're amongst the better players in that position, I think, in the whole league. I don't think there's that many outside of, for instance, the top six clubs. The traditional top six clubs who've got better left backs. And the quietly ironic thing is, for instance, I don't think he even necessarily suit Newcastle that much the way they want to play either of them, because they're so conservative in that position. I think they're really, really good attacking fullbacks. Both really good players.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I feel with Ait Nouri, we can sort of Ryan back. We can Gareth Bale Ait Nouri and sort of moving from a more traditional left wing back to a left forward or a left attacking midfielder, like we've seen at times this season. And I think them two together, Bueno and Ait Nouri together, offers us something going forward, but a lot more defensively as well.
Just going touching on Ait Nouri, is the second best dribbler in the Premier League behind Harry Kane for me.
Yeah, I think he's a really exciting footballer.
That job completely flopped then, didn't it? Well, I won't bother again, lads. If you can't give me a laugh, lads, I ain't going to bother again.
That's not what you know what
Too late, lads. Anyway, Breno and Ait Nouri on our left side tomorrow, Luke. Liam, looking at that Wolves side that Luke's predicted, any changes that you'd make? And obviously, with you being your first time on the show tonight, what's your feelings and thoughts on Adama?
He's a tricky one for me because he offers a lot of pressure and he really can hit Robertson, and I do think it'll be a trouble for him. But it's just he tends to take too long on the ball for me, and he doesn't work enough in that area. And I feel that if he's not supplying balls in and around him, he sort of struggles. But I think he can definitely get around, and if he can get that final ball away, I think it'd be perfect for Cunha to get in there and bag a goal or a couple. For sure. But yeah, in terms of the team, I'd stick it with that, to be honest. Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be. I'm expecting this to be quite early on a match of the day on Saturday. I think it's got the foundations to be a cracking game, not just for the neutral, but hopefully we can get a good result against Liverpool on Saturday. I've just accidentally kicked Neil out, but I've just welcomed him back. Right. Don't repeat what I just said about Neil, lads, because he's a lovely man and he's given us his time tonight. Let's do the part that I hate doing every preview show. It's score predictions part. Come to you first, Liam. Wolves Liverpool tomorrow, 3 p.m. Molineux. Score prediction.
I'd like to say 2-1, but I can see a 1-1 happening. To be honest, I feel like it's going to be a real grueler of a game, to be honest, and especially for the last two that we played, I think that's the realistic option in my brain.
Where you going, Luke? Where's your money?
Similar to Liam, I'd love to be able to say 2-1, but I can see it being a really entertaining 1-1 draw.
Neil, where's your money tomorrow?
I think it'll be Wolves 0, Liverpool 2. And the second goal comes because Wolves are putting loads of, not dissimilar to the cup game, putting loads and loads of pressure onto Liverpool. Get one ahead, may not deserve it, but it ends up in the back of the net somehow. Wolves put a lot of pressure on Liverpool. Gets to about 85, and unlike in the cup game, Liverpool have still got Salah, Nunez, whoever on the pitch, and are able to counter-attack effectively and pinch it, and it goes 2-0. But I'm expecting it to be really close and really trappy. Like I'm saying 2-0 because I'm a Liverpool supporter. If the game's got 2 goals in it may well go 1-1. It's not beyond the realms of possibility Wolves win 2-0. The only funny thing is that Wolves have only scored 6 goals at home all season. So it's difficult for me to make a coherent argument. Wolves are going to score 2 goals at home because it just hasn't happened, and that's not, that's just literally that is the numbers. That's what the numbers are saying. That's what Wolves have been like all season. That will change at some point, and maybe Liverpool are unlucky and it changes against Liverpool. But I think ultimately most football matches have 2 or 3 goals in, and I think this one will have 2 goals for Liverpool.
I took out Alisson Becker and Joao Matip from my fantasy team this week, and that suggests to me that I think Wolves are going to score at least 1. So I think we could see a Wolves 1-0 tomorrow. But based on what Liam and Lucas said, I think if you want to have a safe bet this weekend, Wolves fans, jump on the 1-1. I'm going to end the show tonight with sudden death squads. You've probably seen it before on other podcasts. It's a pretty simple game. I'm going to show you a Wolves Liverpool game from the past. You have to name a player that featured in the game. When you get a player wrong, you're then out of the game. We haven't got a massively good record against Liverpool in the Premier League. We've only beat them once, and that was at Anfield. There's been 2 draws. So I've picked the draw at Molineux from 2004. Kenny Miller scored the equaliser for Wolves that day. I'm going to try and make it a bit easier for Neil, so we've got one less Wolves player to name. But I'm going to come to Neil first. Name a player that featured in that game.
I might go out really early here. Okay.
2004, Neil.
Yeah, 2004, Atelier, Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard is correct. Tolly.
Bloody hell, I was 2 here. I ain't got a clue.
You should have been born earlier.
Skip me, man.
No excuse.
Have a guess. 2004.
Well, you know Kenny Miller scores.
We'll give Tolly Kenny Miller just because he was a baby when we played. Luke.
2004. I'm going to go with Big Dennis Irwin or Little Dennis Irwin.
Yeah, Dennis Irwin played right back for Wolves that day.
Okay, Jamie Carragher.
Neil, you again? Yeah, Jamie Carragher played in what looks like a three-man Liverpool defence that day. Tolly, come on, give us a guess.
Has Lee Naylor got to be in there, surely?
Lee Naylor played left back for Wolves that day. You're still in the game.
Great stuff.
Oh, God.
You can't get beat by the 2-year-old, Luke. Come on.
I know. Don't put the fuck around. Oh, my God, losing to a toddler. Paul Ince.
Paul Ince played centre mid that day. That's correct. Back to you again, Neil. I hope you're not Googling there, Neil, for...
No, not at all. Wouldn't dream of it. Sammy Hippier.
Sammy Hippier was a part of the three-man defence with Jamie Carragher. Back to you again, Tolly.
I'm going to... Matt Murray in goal.
Unfortunately, the toddler's out.
Oh.
Luke, back to you.
Right. I reckon if this was our first season up, your best mate, Mark Kennedy.
The greatest left-footed winger in the history of football. Citation needed. That's correct. Cool. Neil, back to you.
John Arnorisa.
Neil, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
John Arnorisa did not feature that day. He didn't even come off the bench. Luke,
was he on the bench?
No, he wasn't on the bench. He may have been on the bench, but he didn't come off the bench. So, unfortunately, you're out the game. Luke, name a player to win the game.
Well, in our first season in the Prem, if Matt Murray wasn't in goal, it was the biggest dick in football, Michael Oakes.
So just for clarification, he has the biggest dick in football. He's not the biggest dick in football. So I need to make that clear for our viewers. We're very keen on facts on this show. He's got the biggest dick. He's not the biggest dick. The correct answer is Michael Oakes, and Luke wins this week's Sudden Death Squads.
Oh, well.
Neil, just for like peace of mind, you missed the goal scorer for Liverpool that day, Bruno Giroud.
Yeah, well, it was Giroud era, but I had Giroud in the back of my mind. I also had Didier Mann in my mind.
Yeah, Didier Mann was there. Owen and Heskey up front. Harry Kewell. Who did?
No, I just presumed he would have. I just presumed he was going to have. Who played left back? I mean, that's I was entirely based on who played left back.
Well, according to the image that I found earlier, you had a back three of Steve Finnan, Hippier, and Carragher, with a midfield two of Biscan and Haman, and then in front of those it was Kewell, Gerrard, and Giroud, with a front two of Owen and Heskey.
I feel like I've been done in by Gerard Houllier yet again. How many games in his Liverpool managing career did Gerard Houllier play a back three? It was not many. Someone's been pressed into service at left back there. Something mad's happened. Biscan's playing centre half and Carragher's left back or something. That's my guess.
Maybe. Obviously, Kenny Miller scored past Jersey Dudek that day. For everyone
that should just have gone for the goal.
See me in the flesh. Danny Murphy came off the bench for Liverpool that day, along with Stefan Onshaw. Luke, Silas came off the bench that day for Wolves.
Do you know what? I honestly thought when we signed him, we'd really made the big time because we were signing these Portuguese players that you've never heard of, but they're probably good on like Champman, 03, 04.
Obviously, Kenny Miller scored the late equaliser. He played up front with Stefan Everson that day. You had Inton Ray in midfield, Newton and Kennedy on the wings with a back four of Irwin, Butler, Craddock and Naylor. And as you mentioned, the owner of the biggest dick in football, Michael Oakes, played in the sticks for Wolves that day. Thanks for joining us, everyone that's partaked in tonight's show. Thanks for commenting. Drop a like before you leave. Drop a like if you think Wolves are going to win tomorrow. Drop a like if you think we're going to grab a draw tomorrow. Just drop a like before you leave. Thanks
Drop
for
a like
joining
if you
us.
think Everton are going to go down.
Like if you think Everton are going to go down. Press a like if you think Everton could finish bottom. Let's do something interesting. Maybe drop a like if you think they're going to finish second from bottom. Just drop a like if you're happy to be alive and being a football fan. Thanks for joining us, Neil. Anfield Wrap. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I had a great time.
Liam, you've got Rosa Caelum, Katie Fitzgerald on the 3rd of March. I've had a bit of a video technical malfunction where I haven't got the video, but I'll share it again on our Twitter feed. Luke, I'm not going to see you tomorrow, am I? Because you give your tickets away like a plastic. Yeah, well, that's it. Put your hands across your face. You're a disgrace.
Schmuck.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you Sunday for hopefully another podcast review.
Hi, Wolverhampton.
Toyo from Neil. It's bye from me.